Camp Pendleton, California. United States Marine Corps Base, July 15, 1971, Thursday morning. Sir, the sun had already taken control of the sky. It wasn't just shining, it was pressing down, heavy, relentless, the kind of heat that didn't just sit on your skin, but worked its way into your bones. Southern California in mid-July had no mercy, 95 degrees, and climbing. The air itself felt thick, unmoving, as if the entire base had been placed under a glass dome. No wind, no relief, just heat and silence, broken only by discipline. The training ground stretched endlessly. A wide open dirt field, dry, compact, unforgiving. Every step kicked up fine dust that lingered in the air before slowly settling back to the ground. Surrounding the field were low military structures, painted in dull greens and faded tan, built for function, not beauty. American flags hung from poles around the perimeter. But they didn't wave, they didn't even move. The air was too still for that. There was a smell, a mix that defined the environment: dust, sweat, sun-baked fabric, military canvas that had absorbed years of heat, effort, and repetition. From somewhere in the distance came the sharp, echoing cracks of rifle fire. A steady rhythm, controlled, mechanical, closer still. Another rhythm layered over it, the voice of drill instructors, sharp, commanding, unforgiving. Orders being shouted with precision, echoing across the base like a metronome of authority. And in the center of it all, 1,000 United States Marines, standing in formation. 10 rows, 100 men per row. Perfect spacing, perfect alignment, not a single line broken, not a single body out of position. They had been standing there for over 20 minutes at attention, without movement, without adjustment, without complaint, because Marines do not fidget. They do not shift weight from one foot to another. They do not wipe sweat from their brows. They do not acknowledge discomfort. They stand until they are told otherwise. And these were not recruits. These were not young men still learning discipline. These were active duty Marines, combat trained, battle tested. Many among them had already been to Vietnam. They had moved through jungles thick enough to swallow sound. They had walked through villages where every shadow could hide danger. They had seen things most men never speak about. They understood violence, not as theory, not as sport, but as reality. They knew how to fight. They knew how to kill. Their bodies reflected. Lean, conditioned, efficient, every muscle shaped by purpose, not vanity. Ages ranged from 19 to 35. Each one dressed in camouflage, each one focused forward, eyes locked, minds controlled. There was no distraction here, only awareness. At the front of the formation, slightly elevated above the ground, stood a simple wooden platform. Nothing special, just enough height to be seen. And on that platform stood a man who at first glance did not belong in this world. Bruce Lee, 31 years old, 5'7" tall, 140 pounds. No uniform, no rank, no badge, no indication of authority within this environment. Just a black t-shirt, black training pants, simple, minimal, almost insignificant. Surrounded by Marines who averaged 6 feet in height and nearly 40 pounds heavier, he looked small, outnumbered, outsized, out of place. But there was something else. He didn't look uncertain. He didn't shift. He didn't compensate. He didn't try to appear bigger than he was. He simply stood, relaxed, balanced, present. He hadn't come here by accident. He had been invited. The Marine Corps Combat Development Command had brought him in, not for entertainment, not for demonstration, but for evaluation, because something had changed. War had changed. The methods that had been effective in World War II, boxing combinations, wrestling holds, linear attacks, were no longer enough. Vietnam had proven that. Vietnam had proven that. Combat was no longer predictable. It wasn't always structured. It wasn't always symmetrical, it was chaotic, close, uncertain, and often decided in seconds. The Marines needed something more, something adaptable, something fluid, something that could function under unpredictability. And so they began looking outside their traditional systems. Martial artists, specialists, individuals who approach combat differently. Bruce Lee was one of them. And for the past hour, he had been demonstrating movements, concepts, principles, not just techniques, but ideas. Efficiency, but ideas. Efficiency, directness, economy of motion. He didn't waste energy. He didn't rely on brute force. He emphasized timing, positioning, awareness. To some, it looked impressive. To others, it looked unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things are often questioned. Standing beside the platform was a man who represented everything the Marines trusted. Colonel James Morrison, 48 years old, 6'2", 220 pounds, 30 years in the Marine Corps, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. He had climbed every rank through experience, through survival, through leadership. He had trained thousands of Marines, prepared them for combat, watched them leave, and sometimes not return. He understood violence in its rawest form, and because of that, he didn't believe easily. For over an hour, he had watched Bruce Lee carefully, analyzing, observing, judging. The movements were clean, precise, controlled, almost effortless. But Morrison had seen effortless before. Demonstrations always looked good when there was no real danger. But war was not controlled. War did not follow patterns. War punished hesitation. And so, as Bruce completed another drill, a sensitivity exercise, forearms touching, reacting through contact, Morrison made his decision. He stepped forward. And when he spoke, the entire field felt it. The air changed. Not physically, not visibly, but something shifted across the entire training ground. It was subtle, yet undeniable. A tension, a quiet, tightening pressure that moved through all 1,000 Marines, standing in formation. No one spoke, no one moved, but every single one of them felt it. This was no longer just another training session. This had become something else, something real. At the center of it stood Bruce Lee, calm, composed, completely unaffected by the shift in atmosphere. And across from him, Colonel James Morrison, a man who had built his entire life on control, discipline, and dominance in combat. For over an hour, Morrison had observed. Now, he had spoken, and what he said could not be taken back. Mr. Lee, with respect, this looks like dancing. The words still hung in the air. They weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They carried weight because of who said them. Because when a colonel with 3 decades of combat experience speaks, men listen. Even silence listens. Bruce turned slowly to face him. No irritation, no ego. No reaction that suggested offense. Just presence. Why do you believe that, Colonel? It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't defensive. It was curiosity. Genuine curiosity. That alone caught Morrison slightly off guard. Most men, when questioned publicly, especially in front of 1,000 trained soldiers, would react emotionally, defend themselves, push back. But this man didn't, he asked. Morrison took a step forward, his boots pressed into the dry dirt, leaving a clear imprint. His posture remained strong, shoulders squared, chin slightly raised. These Marines, he said, gesturing toward the formation behind him, are trained for combat under pressure, real pressure. His voice carried clearly across the field. In a war zone, you don't have time to feel or analyze or interpret intention. A slight pause. You react. You hit hard. You end the threat as quickly as possible. He looked directly at Bruce now. That's what works. A few Marines, still locked in position, felt a sense of quiet agreement. This was familiar. This was what they were taught. Speed, power, aggression. Finish the fight. Bruce nodded slightly. Yes, he said calmly, that is effective. Another pause. Then, but only under certain conditions. That line landed differently, not as disagreement, but as expansion. Morrison narrowed his eyes slightly. Explain. Bruce took a single step forward, not aggressive, not confrontational, just enough to close the conversational distance. What happens, he asked, when your opponent is not weaker than you? Morrison didn't hesitate. Then we use advantage. Numbers, weapons, strategy. Bruce tilted his head slightly. And if none of those are available, now there was a gap, a small one, but noticeable. Morrison crossed his arms. Then you fight harder. A few Marines internally nodded again. Yes, that made sense. That was instinct. That was doctrine. Bruce held eye contact. And if fighting harder is not enough, silence. This time, the silence had weight, not confusion, but resistance. Because the idea itself challenged something deeper, the assumption that more force always solves the problem. Morrison exhaled slowly, then you adapt within your system. Bruce nodded again. But what if your system is the limitation? That line didn't just challenge Morrison. It challenged everything the Marines had been trained to believe, not directly, but structurally. Morrison's jaw tightened slightly. Not anger, but focus. You're saying our training is limited? Bruce answered immediately. No, a pause. I'm saying it is incomplete. That was different, very different, not wrong. Incomplete. That word carried possibility, but also discomfort. Morrison looked back at his Marines briefly, then back at Bruce. You're telling me, he said slowly, that what you're showing here would work in real combat? Bruce didn't blink. Yes. That single word cut through everything. No hesitation, no explanation, just certainty. And that was the moment, the exact moment the situation changed. From discussion to test, Morrison stepped closer now. Close enough that there was no separation of roles anymore. This was no longer instructor and evaluator. This was two men, two systems, two philosophies, facing each other. How would you prove that? Morrison asked. Bruce answered without delay, by testing it. How? A slight pause. Then, attack Nate. The words landed like a shockwave, not loud, but powerful. The entire formation felt it. 1,000 Marines, still standing at attention, internally shifted. A civilian had just invited a full contact attack from a Marine colonel on a military base in front of every witness available. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't scheduled. This wasn't normal. Morrison stared at him, trying to read something deeper. Arrogance, overconfidence, a misunderstanding of reality, or something else entirely. Attack you, Morrison repeated. Yes. Full contact, yes. No control. Bruce held his gaze. If you hold back, it proves nothing. That was it. That was the line. Because Rhymes understood that controlled demonstrations meant nothing. Reality only showed itself under pressure. Morrison took a slow breath. His mind moved quickly now, not emotionally, strategically. He looked past Bruce, briefly scanning the formation. His Marines were watching, every single one of them, even without moving. They were fully present. If he refused, doubt. If he accepted, risk. But also, clarity. And clarity was always worth the risk. Morrison reached up, slowly removed his jacket, handed it to a nearby sergeant without breaking eye contact. The movement itself carried meaning. This was no longer conversation. This was commitment. Underneath, his t-shirt clung slightly to his frame from the heat. His arms thick, defined, marked by years of physical strength. Scars, small ones, barely visible, but present. Evidence of history. He stepped forward, off the platform, onto the dirt. Bruce stepped down as well. Now they stood on equal ground, literally and symbolically. No elevation, no advantage, just distance, 15 feet between them. The Marines, still technically in formation, adjusted ever so slightly. not breaking discipline, but allowing themselves to see. Better, clearer. No one was going to miss this. Morrison rolled his shoulders once, loosening tension. Then he dropped into stance. It was immediate, natural. His feet set apart, knees slightly bent, hands raised, not exaggerated, not theatrical, but practiced, efficient. A stance built from years of repetition, bar fights, training drills, real engagements. Situations where hesitation meant consequences. His body remembered without thinking. Bruce did nothing. He stood upright, feet shoulder width apart, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing steady. No guard, no visible preparation, no indication of defense. It didn't look like readiness. It looked like stillness. Morrison frowned slightly. Put your hands up. Bruce shook his head gently. I don't need to. That statement hit differently now. Not arrogance. Not yet, but something close. Morrison's expression hardened, because now there was only one way to respond. Action. There was no signal, no countdown, no referee, only presence, only instinct. 15 feet of dry, compact dirt separated Bruce Lee and Colonel James Morrison. And then it began. Morrison moved first, not slowly, not cautiously, but explosively. For a man of 220 pounds, his speed was shocking. Years of conditioning had stripped away unnecessary hesitation. His body understood one thing post-distance: deliver impact, end the threat. 3 steps. That's all it took. The first step, aggressive. The second, committed. The third, attack. His right shoulder rotated forward. Hips follow. Weight transferred cleanly through his core. A straight right punch launched toward Bruce's face. This was not a test strike, not a probing jab. This was a finishing punch, the kind meant to end the fight instantly. From the perspective of the watching Marines, it looked perfect. Form correct, timing correct, power undeniable. For a fraction of a second, it looked like it would land, but Bruce was no longer there. He didn't step back, he didn't retreat, he didn't block, he simply shifted. He didn't block, he simply shifted. A subtle angle, 45 degrees off the line of attack, minimal movement, maximum effect. Morrison's fist cut through empty air. That single moment changed everything. Because in combat, the first missed strike does more than fail. It disrupts rhythm, it creates doubt. But Morrison was not inexperienced. He didn't freeze, didn't hesitate. He recovered instantly. His left side rotated. A hook followed. Tight, fast, designed to catch B. Bruce as he repositioned. But Bruce didn't move away. He moved closer. Inside the arc, too close for the hook to generate power. The strike collapsed before it could develop. From the outside, it looked like nothing. But inside that moment, distance had been destroyed. And with it, leverage. Morrison adjusted again. No frustration yet, just adaptation. He reached forward, attempted to grab, because if he could secure contact, everything would change. Weight advantage, strength advantage, control. But again, nothing. Bruce wasn't where he needed him to be. He had already shifted. A slight pivot, a small step, but enough, always enough, to remain just outside control. Now something new entered Morrison's mind. Not fear, but confusion. Because every movement he made was correct. Everything he had trained was being executed, was being executed, was being executed. A front kick this time. Direct. Efficient. Aim at the body. Military combatives didn't rely on flashy techniques. They relied on results. Disable the opponent. End the encounter. The kick came fast, clean. But Bruce didn't block it. He didn't meet force with force. He met it with redirection. His shin connected rightly, guided, adjusted the trajectory just enough that the kick lost its target, lost its structure, lost its impact 6 seconds. That's how long it had been. 6 seconds of continuous attack, and not one strike had landed. Not one. The Marines watching could feel it now. Something was wrong, not with Morrison, but with the situation itself, because this didn't match expectation. This didn't match experience. This didn't match reality. As they understood it, Morrison felt it too. And now, frustration began to rise. Not uncontrolled, but present, because something fundamental was happening. He couldn't touch him. And in combat, if you can't make contact, you can't win. So he changed strategy immediately. No hesitation, no more striking. He dropped his level. Weight shifted, arms extended, takedown attempt. This was instinct. If striking fails, close distance. Bring the fight to the ground, where size matters, where control is physical, concrete, decisive. He drove forward, fast, committed. This was his moment. But Bruce had already read it, not visually, not consciously, but physically, through timing, through intention. He sprawled, hips moved back, weight dropped down, chest angled over Morrison's upper body. The forward momentum stopped, not by force, but by positioning. And in that exact moment, everything reversed. Bruce's hands moved, not aggressively, but precisely. They found Morrison's head, controlled it, guided. Downward, Morrison's arms extended too far. His base compromised, his balance gone. And suddenly, he was no longer attacking. He was falling, not violently, not dramatically, but inevitably. His face moved toward the dirt. His structure collapsed. And there, in that moment, he understood. He had lost control completely. Bruce's knee rose slowly, not with speed, not with impact, but with intention. It pressed lightly against Morrison's ribs. No force, just contact, just possibility, a silent message. This could end right now. No strike was needed, no damage required. The position itself was the victory. 12 seconds. That's all it took. 12 seconds from the first step to complete control. Bruce released him, stepped back as if nothing had happened. Morrison pushed himself up, slowly. Dust clung to his shirt. His breathing was heavier now, not from exhaustion, but from realization. Something deeper than fat. Iggy. He stood upright again, but internally, everything had shifted. The Marines didn't move, didn't speak, didn't react because they couldn't. What they had just witnessed did not fit into their understanding of combat. Their colon, a man they trusted, without question, had been completely neutralized, without a single strike, without visible effort, without resistance that looked like resistance. And that silence was louder than anything else on the field. Morrison looked at Bruce, not with anger, not with ego, but with a question that carried weight. How? Bruce answered simply, "You attacked exactly the way you were trained." A pause. And I responded differently. Morrison stared at him, still processing. Bruce continued, "You used force. I used timing. You tried to control. I removed the opportunity. You tried to impose your system. I stepped outside it." Each sentence landed deeper than the last, because none of it was insulting. None of it dismissed his experience. It explained it, reframed it. Morrison exhaled slowly, because now he understood something he hadn't before. It wasn't that his training had failed. It was that it had limits. And for the first time in decades, he had reached them. Silence. Not ordinary silence. Not the kind that comes from discipline or command. This was different. This was the kind of silence that forms when reality shifts. The dirt field of Camp Pendleton, moments ago, filled with tension, expectation, and silent confidence, now felt frozen in time. 1,000 Marines stood still, exactly where they had been, exactly how they had been. But internally, nothing was the same, because what they had just witnessed did not align with what they believed to be true. At the center of it stood Colonel James Morrison, a man they trusted, a man they followed, a man with, represented strength, experience, and certainty. And across from him, Bruce Lee, a civilian, smaller, lighter, unranked. Yet in just 12 seconds, the balance between them had completely reversed. Morrison stood upright now, but there was dust on his shirt, a thin layer across his chest, his arms, his side. Not much, but enough. Enough to tell a story. He brushed it off slowly. Not rushed, not embarrassed in movement, but deliberate. Measured, his breathing was still, slightly elevated, not from exhaustion, but from what had just happened. Because this wasn't physical fatigue. This was something else. A disruption, a recalibration. For 30 years, his understanding of combat had been clear, defined, structured. You engage, you dominate, you overwhelm, you win. That model had worked in real fights, in real war, against real enemies. So what happens when it suddenly doesn't? Morrison lifted his head, looked directly at Bruce. There was no anger in his eyes, no defensiveness, no denial. Only one thing, a question: how? The word came out slower than expected. He wasn't asking for an excuse. He was asking for truth. Bruce didn't rush his answer, didn't step forward, didn't posture. He simply stood calm, balanced, present. You fought the way you were trained, he said quietly. The words carried, not loudly, but clearly enough for every Marine to hear it. Maximum aggression, maximum force, direct engagement. Morrison listened, every word, because now he had to. Bruce continued. That works against opponents who respond the same way. A pause, but I didn't. That line landed deeper than anything else so far, because it exposed something subtle, but critical. Assumption. Combat training, by nature, assumes patterns, expected reactions, predictable behavior. But what happens when the opponent doesn't follow those rules? Morrison spoke again, slowly, carefully, as if I was fighting someone who wasn't there. Bruce nodded slightly. You were fighting what you expected. Another pause, and I moved where you didn't. That was it. Simple, but devastatingly accurate, because Morrison realized he hadn't been reacting to Bruce. He had been reacting to his own expectations. Bruce didn't overpower him. He didn't outmuscle him. He didn't outstrike him. He simply removed himself from every point of contact. And when Morrison committed, Bruce let that commitment work against him. Morrison exhaled deeply, because now it made sense. And when something makes sense, it changes everything. He looked down briefly at the dirt beneath his boots, then back up, his voice quieter now, more grounded. Then my training, a slight pause, wasn't enough. The words were heavier, not because they admitted weakness, but because they admitted limitation. And that is something few men, especially leaders, say out loud in front of 1,000 subordinates. Bruce shook his head gently. No. A pause. It is enough for what it was designed for. Morrison listened closely, but not for everything. There it was again. Not wrong. Incomplete. Bruce took a small step forward, now addressing not just Morrison, but the entire formation. Your training builds strength, aggression, endurance. His voice carried further now. You can carry weight, move under pressure, fight through exhaustion. Every Marine felt that, because it was true. But you are trained to impose force. A pause. You are not trained to feel it. That line hit differently, because it introduced something unfamiliar. Feel it, not see it, not calculate it. Feel it. Bruce continued. When you rely only on strength, you must always be stronger. When you rely only on speed, you must always be faster. When you rely only on aggression, you must always be more aggressive. Another pause. But what happens when you are not? Silence answered that question, because every Marine knew there are always situations where you are not stronger, not faster, not in control. And in those moments, what remains? Bruce answered. Adaptation? He gestured lightly toward Morrison. Your colonel is not weak. No hesitation, no doubt. He is experienced, skilled, courageous. Morrison didn't react outwardly, but internally. That mattered, because this wasn't about humiliation. This was about understanding. He agreed to test this in front of all of you. Bruce continued. That takes strength. Now the Marines felt something shift again. Respect, not just for Bruce, but for Morrison. Because stepping into that moment carried risk, and he took it anyway. Morrison stood taller now, the earlier weight of the moment transforming into something else. Not embarrassment, not pride, but clarity. He turned, faced his Marines, all 1,000 of them, still standing, still watching, still silent. But now, waiting for something. Guidance, interpretation, meaning, because what they had just seen needed context, and that context had to come from him. Morrison took a breath, then spoke. Marines, his voice carried across the entire field. What you just saw, a pause, was real, no hesitation, no qualification, no excuse. I attacked with everything I know. Another pause, and I couldn't touch it. The words landed hard, but not as weakness, as truth. Not because I'm weak, not because our training is useless. He looked directly at them, but because there are principles we are not teaching. That line changed everything, because now this wasn't about losing, it was about learning. I spent 30 years training for combat, Morrison continued. And today, a brief pause. I found a gap, silence deepened, but now it wasn't confusion, it was focus. I recommend, he said clearly, we close that gap. He turned back toward Bruce, extended his hand, a simple gesture, but powerful. Will you teach us? The question carried more than just curiosity. It carried humility and leadership. Bruce stepped forward, took his hand. The size difference was obvious, but now it didn't matter. Yes, Bruce said, but understand, a pause. This takes time. Morrison gave a slight nod. That's fine. A faint smile appeared. Marines don't mind hard things. A small pause. They just need a reason. He looked back at the formation. At 1,000 men, now seeing something they had never seen before. You just gave them one.